So, I watched this for the very first time about a year and a half ago. And very sadly, to my sheer disappointment, I never grew up with the Goonies. It's horrible, I know. I've heard the name Goonies my entire life. And for whatever strange, fucked up reason, this film just always got overlooked. I skipped it all the time. I don't know why. I don't know why, I have no reason why I didn't gravitate to this film when I was younger because I've always loved films even when I was a kid. For some reason, this one always just skipped me. Even though I've heard it all the time, throughout my teens, 20s, I always knew it was a classic, and just never got around to it until about a year and a half ago. And since then, I've watched it a few times recently, obviously. Still have to watch it in 4K. I really need a freaking 4K player. It's terrible, but but I bought it on 4K obviously because I wasn't gonna pass on the newly updated edition with slipcover, and I just really regret not growing up with this because I know that I would have instant and insane amounts of nostalgia for this film if I had grown up with it, watching it as a kid. I know I would, hands down. This film is such a product of its time. This is a film that a lot of parts in it would not be able to be made today because of the sensitive snowflakes that overpopulate the world. And being that everybody is so sensitive to so many things, that's a different story. But it's very 80s. I love Cyndi Lauper's song in here that's called "The Goonies Are Good Enough." Are good enough. Great song. Very reminiscent to what the movie is and everything that it represents and stands for. And just the atmosphere, man. Like, the story's ridiculous. I don't even know what went behind it. It almost feels like it's based on a book or like it was adapted from a book, but it's not. It's a completely original screenplay written by Steven Spielberg and then directed by Richard Donner. And Richard Donner and Steven Spielberg. Yeah, the story by Steven Spielberg. There's somebody else in here. Chris Columbus, that's it. He did the screenplay. So Steven Spielberg wrote the story and Chris Columbus wrote the screenplay. I knew there was two big names in here that usually work together or, you know, with each other in many projects. So there's those two, and then Richard Donner, who I don't recognize by name. I'm sure I know other films of his, but the name doesn't really ring a bell. Regardless, great 80s film, and it's a classic. There's no way around it. Like, it's a pure classic. It's a family classic. Like, it's for everybody. It's for all ages. It doesn't matter. Like, unless you're like some grumpy bump in the log, there's no reason not to love the Goonies. Again, as ridiculous as the story is, like, the whole story just like plays out like a dream, or a fantasy of some kind, like some kind of daydream that a kid would have on a boring day, like to the point where it's almost like you finish the movie and the movie doesn't finish as if it is a dream. It finishes like everything actually happened, and it did. Like, that's what the film you know leaves you on. It doesn't leave you on like, oh, it was all just a dream, but it feels like it would be something that a child would create in their head, and it's just so packed and filled with vivid imagination. It's incredible. It's like it's not a fairy tale, but it plays out like a children's book, honestly, in every way, shape, or form. But characters are great. You got Brand and Mikey, who are brothers. Brand is played by a teenage fuck, Josh Brolin. There you go. I was gonna say Josh Hartnett. I don't know why. Teenage Josh Brolin, and Josh Brolin is such a good actor, and it's funny to see a teenage Josh Brolin in this film because he's also great in this movie, but he's so different today, and he's gone to do so many huge roles and projects that it's funny to see him basically as a kid, and they're like I guess you could say, the stars of the film. And then you got Chunk, who they call Chunk because he's a little chubby kid, and he's hilarious. They always like pick on him in kind of sad, borderline bullyish ways, but he's such a charming personality, and he brings so much humor to the whole gang. Like the whole gang is pretty much, that's why they call it the Goonies, because they're not individually, they're basic. They're just the most average people, but you put them together and they just bring the life out of every other character. Like each one individually brings the life out of everybody else. And then you got Mouth, who's the loud mouth. That's why they call him Mouth. It's hilarious. Data is the little Asian kid who's absolutely hilarious. Everything he says, he has all these gadgets. He has like a utility belt of literally everything you can think of, and he comes to the house at the beginning of the movie by like I don't know, James Bond style, swinging on a rope or some shit that he like shoots from his belt. It's ridiculous. So Brand, Mikey, Mouth, Chunk, and Data, yeah. And then you got other characters that show up later on, including this girl named Andy, who is the romantic interest of Brand, and her friend Steph. And then you got the villains, Jake, Francis, and Mama. Mama is I was questioning a lot of times whether this woman was actually played by a man. It's not, because you can tell it has a woman's voice and everything. But this woman is butch. I mean, I'm pretty sure she can kick Miss Trunchbull from Matilda's ass. This woman is so fucking butch. Uh, she's got like, I don't know. She looks like Eastern European almost. She's got this like beret hats all the time, and man, like the whole, they call themselves the Fratellis. They're supposed to be Italian, and the two guys, Jake and Francis, do look and speak and act and sing a lot Italian, but she doesn't look Italian whatsoever. But apparently, she's the mother of the two. So, and then of course you got Sloth. Obviously, I've put in the title already. This is a spoiler review. Sloth again is just another goofy character that kind of comes out of nowhere. He has these like deformities on his face. He has like his eyes are like in weird positions on his face, and he kind of looks like a troll, you could say. And it's a really great like bond and relationship that he forms with Chunk, and Chunk forms with him too. But anyways, starting at the beginning of the film, I could say it's, yeah, it starts off dark right off the bat, because there's a fake suicide by one of the villains, Jake or Francis. I think it's Jake. He hangs himself from the neck in prison, so that when the cop comes into the prison, he reads a note that he has attached to himself while hanging, and then the cop is reading the note, and it's like, oh, you didn't really think I was actually going to hang myself or something like that. And then his eyes are open, and he gives this like evil smile, and then he starts beating the cop, and they have this whole escape plan. And basically, as the credits are rolling, it's Mama trying to break this guy out of prison, and then they go to a cabin, and that's how your movie opens. Before we're introduced to Mikey and Brand. It's cool seeing Corey Feldman in this movie as well. He plays Mouth, I'm pretty sure. From yeah, he plays Mouth. Had a little brain fart there. And at the beginning of the film, I think they're watching, at Mikey and Brand's, I think they're watching Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe. I'm quite sure. It might be something else, but the scene at the beginning where there's like the old fashioned cars chase, like there's the car chase in the 40s, it looked like Some Like It Hot, so I'm guessing it was, but totally could be wrong. I love how the word shit is totally acceptable in a PG movie in the 80s. I do remember a lot of movies using the word shit in family movies and stuff like that, and it was really not looked at as a really offensive word back then, as much as it is today. I love the statue scene. It's absolutely hilarious, where the Chunk drops it accidentally and they break its dick off accidentally. And I love the line that he says right after. He's like, "That's my mom's favorite piece," meaning the statue, but it kind of references the piece, you know. That's my mom's favorite piece. It's so funny. And then they glue it back on, but they glue it upside down so the cock is sticking up. The Josh Brolin's character is like, if God wanted it that way, you'd all be pissing on your faces, or something like that. Again, very risky for something to be made like that today because everybody's sensitive. But I mean, it honestly is hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. And they just don't make humor like that anymore. It's really like today. It's basically like humor today is sex and swearing in comedies anyway, adult comedies, and pretty much everything else besides sex and swearing seems to be offensive. But that's 2022 for you. I like when all the kids like tie Brand up to the chair because they don't want Brand joining them for some reason in this adventure that they go on, which completely like ironic and coincidental that they find a pirate's map in the attic. This is a big reason why it almost seems like they found the map and then just created everything in their heads because the adventure they end up on is so out of this world and imaginative that it just seems like it would be created in somebody's mind, kind of thing. And when they go on this little adventure, they tie Brand up. I really like the character of Rosalita as well. She's funny. They tie him up, and then when he gets out, he steals this little girl's bike, and she just starts stomping. She's like, "I want my bike," because they slit his own bike's tires, and then he takes it. He just grabs the little girl and literally just puts her down and like steals her pink bike. It's hilarious. And then when he's riding down looking for the gang of the kids, he runs into this guy. What's his name? The guy that's with Andy. It's clear that Andy has a crush on Brand, so I don't know why she's hanging out with this other dude. Because it doesn't seem that they're dating. I think his name is Troy. It doesn't seem that they're dating, but she's driving around with him, and she, throughout the film, makes it clear that she's not into him, and she's really into Brand. She makes that clear every fucking scene, so I don't know, that was kind of weird. And then the kids find this cabin, and it turns out that the Fratellis, this this trio of Italian henchmen or whatever, is hiding out in the cabin where there's this car, and Chunk finds the car, and there's bullet holes in the car, so he starts to freak out completely. I love when Mouth, I think he says to Chunk, he's like, "Hey Chunk, I have naked pictures of your mom." And Chunk's like, "What?" So the way he says "what," it's so fucking. It's so Chunk. It's so that character. It's just so it fits so perfectly. So they have this whole thing where they're counterfeiting money, and that's their whole operation. The villains, I mean, and when they hear that these kids found a map to an actual boat that has actual treasure and actual gold, they obviously want all this shit for themselves. So it's basically a race to this hidden pirate ship, which is hidden in the rocks, apparently right in their backyard in Oregon, in like some place that's like 5 minutes away from their house. Again, ironic, and they're looking for the pirate's name is One-Eyed Willie, which is again a pretty suggestive name, One-Eyed Willie. And yeah, and then like their entire adventure just from one location to the next, and like they find skeletons, and they're going down water slides, and Sloth, like I said, that character is just a whole topic and plot on its own. I found it hilarious when the villains capture Chunk, and they're asking him to like spill the beans about like what he's done wrong or something like that. Like they want some kind of information out of him, and then he starts crying. And it's like he's supposed to be sad crying because he's scared, but it's just funny the way he cries and the way the actor portrays this. Because he starts to like basically confess every single thing he's ever done. He's like, in grade 4 I like stole a packet of candy, in grade 5 I lied about this and that. And he's just going on and on about like really tiny like offenses that he's done in his life and feeling so bad and so guilty for them, and he's confessing to the villains just the most like childlike confessions you can ever hear. It's so funny. It's so well done and so well directed. I love it. I like when Data says tries to say booby traps, but it comes out as booty traps. That was funny. I love Data's little gadget that he has. It's basically a teeth slinky. It has those teeth that like you wind up and they would like bite at the end of a slinky. So he shoots the slinky and the teeth bite into something, and then he can like swing on it or like pull, because apparently the toy teeth have that much grip that it's able to carry his entire weight. But you know, there's that whole scene where Andy, the girl, she wants to kiss Brand, and she calls him over, but Mikey comes over instead. And she's a lot older than Mikey, so it's kind of weird. But she kisses him thinking it's Brand, and then Mikey gets all like, "Ooh, I kissed a girl." And Steph is watching, and Steph doesn't say anything. Andy's friend Steph, the other girl, who, by the way, swear to God, looks like a female Crispin Glover. This Steph girl literally looks like a female Crispin Glover. Not even kidding. I can't be the only one who noticed that. I noticed day one. I'm like, wow, like, cause she has short hair and everything too. I'm like, is that No, that's a girl. She starts talking, and I'm like, seriously, female Crispin Glover, Crispin Glover, yes. So she's watching, and she's watching her friend Andy kiss this Mikey kid. And she still thought it was Brand. She's like, "Does Brand wear braces?" And then closer to the end, when they start making out in the water to actually Brand, she's like, "What happened to your braces?" And Brand's like, "What? Oh, Mikey, that little shit." And that was pretty cute. I like that. Again, humor that you're never gonna get in the 21st century like they did in the 80s. It just doesn't. It's just not gonna happen again. The pirate ship looks great. A lot of these scenes obviously look like they're done in studios or on stages. Like everything looks built, but everything looks so fantastic and professionally done. It's like the best stage act or best play that a production studio could put on display. The ship looks so good and so classic pirate ship looking. And somehow in the finale, like in the climax, it comes out of the rocks and it starts floating away into the ocean, or the ocean, because it's Oregon. And it's not explained, and there's a lot of things that aren't explained in this movie that don't make any sense. But you know what? It doesn't fucking matter. Like, Goonies is just one of those rarities that none of the illogical plot holes and goofiness and, I guess I could say, stupidity of it matters, because it's still such a gem, and it's hard to make a movie like that where all the ridiculousness of it can be overlooked just because of the pure, sheer, perfect charm of it. And it's a big reason why I regret not growing up with this, because I would have a severe amount of nostalgia for it, guaranteed. About Dada's like the actor, I forget his name, and I probably wouldn't be able to pronounce it properly anyway. But the little Asian guy from this and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's the two movies that made him famous. He retired from acting after that. He was here and there, but he basically became a martial arts choreographer. So he would choreograph martial arts scenes in all kinds of films, and he did that for like 20 years. And then he pops up in Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is probably my favorite film of 2022. If you haven't seen it, go fucking watch it. And there's a spoiler-free review actually on my channel if you want to check that out too. Such a good movie. It's unbelievably good. Know what you're getting into, but go check it out. So that actor's in that as a grown up, obviously, and I didn't know at first. I after watching reviews, I'm like, oh, that's the same Asian kid from Temple of Doom and Goonies. That's fucking awesome. I gotta go rewatch Goonies and Temple of Doom now. And yeah, it's funny to know that because seeing a child actor and then seeing them act as an adult, he kills it in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Let me tell you, this guy. When you hear that he was teaching martial arts choreography for 20 years, oh, you believe it. What he does in this movie, it's unreal. Unreal, the guy. The guy is a master at martial arts. So yeah, the whole pirate ship scene, I guess the whole like climax to the movie, you could say that all takes place on the pirate ship is funny. Sloth is like he's reminded of like the abuse that he had as a child, and even Mama makes a comment where she's like, "I only dropped you on your head once, okay, maybe twice," which is really dark, being that Sloth is like mentally challenged and deformed. So her mentioning that she dropped him on his head is pretty dark given the circumstance. But yeah, that was like, oof, that the movie went there. The movie went there, and then he's reminded of it, and then he's like pushing her to the plank with like a sword or something like that, and then he's telling her to walk the plank and all that, and that was funny. And then the ending is cool too, where all the parents find the kids on the beach, and the kids have been missing for hours or maybe even a full day, and they're all reuniting, and Dada reuniting with his dad, and his dad is as goofy as Dada is, so you know where Dada got his personality from, clearly from his dad, and his dad has like gadgets himself. He has this camera that like pops up right in front of his face so he can just like go like this, and it comes out of his belt too. I totally forgot to mention an epic line that Andy says to either Mouth or Mikey, one of them, I forget which, but on the climax on the beach, she utters the line to, I think it's Mouth. The parts of you, she's like giving him like confidence on like him being young still, but he's gonna grow up to meet girls and all that fun stuff. And she's like, "Don't worry, the parts of you that don't work so good are going to catch up to the ones that do." Family movie. When it comes to that kind of shit and those kind of lines that are clearly suggested in family movies, I'm all over that shit. It's really, really charming stuff like that, and it's constant. It's constant throughout the film. The film never wastes a beat. It's never boring. It's always pumping the audience full of charm, and it's a, I would say, colorful for lack of a better word. It's just so vibrant. It's a juicy film, if that makes sense. The sets and the characters are so well written, and the sets are beautiful. They're just gorgeously beautiful. And the villains, again, like I said, they can get pretty dark, and they can get pretty sinister and scary. Like, you do feel a sense of dread and peril over these kids when they're dealing with these psychos. I mean, they lighten them up a little bit because it's a family movie. They're not like shooting these kids or anything like that, but they are dark, like they are sinister. You do fear for the kids and being in this situation and everything. But it's one hell of an adventure. Like, this is a great adventure movie. And I can't wait to see this in 4K on a proper screen. And not to sound like a broken record, but I wish I grew up with this, because it would have been so fucking awesome. But that's really all I gotta say on the Goonies. Great film, and if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and go watch this classic gem, because they just don't make them like this anymore. And that's all I got. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you'd like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more when I can. Check out what's on the channel. Subscribe if you're interested. And until next review, have a good one. Take care and cheers.